gonna steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
Number 20. Unreal. Number 20 in 2020.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
That's our time.
So,
in.
I'm excited to see you today because, like I said when I came here, I was feeling very snoozy, a little tired, and didn't have any idea what I was going to talk about with you. And then as soon as we sat down, you're like, who is, do you know Michael, am I saying this right, Cohen? And I'm like, oh my fuck, do I know who Michael Cohen is?
I know how to say Cohen.
Do I know who that is? And then I look at the table and you got books on Freemasons, and I was like,
And the mystery traditions.
yep, you just
secret
figured out how to
symbols.
fill an hour with me, Pat.
Oh,
you
yeah.
fucking, you knew, you were like, yeah, I don't know if he's going to have anything to talk about. Maybe I'll just go into things I know he's going to be excited to talk about.
I think it's
without
just that
knowing.
we have common interests.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
that a
we
psychic
bounce
link?
ideas. Yeah, with kindred spirits.
I was hoping you were going to say it was a psychic
It's
link.
interesting in Jewish mystical tradition. They talk about how if two people share a common interest or common comedy, like when a room of people laughs at one joke, that on an esoteric spiritual level, they become one thing. They're enveloped by that principle of that humor and joy at the same thing. And yeah, kindred spirits is, I guess, one of those things, which I think is very interesting.
Well, vibrating at the same frequency.
Yes,
Well, and I've
literally.
always felt that too, like with live music, especially because you're literally all vibrating at the same frequency because it's so loud and you're feeling the vibration of it. Big like EDM festivals would be the
Yep.
fucking perfect embodiment of that.
I had a Christian cousin, and she was very convinced because she was a raver, and we used to go to raves and stuff together.
Like all Christians do.
Yeah, right. And well, she was conflicted about it because she thought raves were like a satanic mass because it took
Oh,
attention
dang.
away from the Lord, and everybody faces the DJ, and they're all
You
tranced
can
out.
praise Allah while you're rolling on E.
Yeah, right.
You can do that.
Well, that's the other element. I used to go to them sober, and I
chewing
just
your
drink
lips off
water.
to-
You know, I just wanted to dance,
Buddha.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. Well, you do seem like a dancer.
I am a
I've
dancer.
seen you
You know.
put some moves on out there.
But you have to compartmentalize that stuff growing up as a man. I talked about this today.
Tough guys don't dance, my friend.
In Saskatchewan, or yesterday, Saskatchewan is such a repressive environment. You know, like
Yep.
you don't dance. You dance and get your ass kicked. You know, guys stand on the side and watch their girlfriends go dance. You know,
Dude,
that
literally,
kind of stuff.
I remember almost getting into a fight one time at a bush party because these guys were making fun of the girls for dancing by the fire.
Yeah,
And I was like, what the fuck are we all here for then, guys?
Yeah.
We're showing up in the middle of the bush. You actually get some girls out here. Now you got to make fun of them for dancing?
To fight or
Jesus
fuck.
goddamn
That's it.
Christ.
they want to
Yeah.
get shit faced, fight or fuck.
Yeah.
that's Saskatchewan way.
And that's
of,
what happened that night.
Yeah, it's kind of like and the idea of having fun. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of.
That's
Yeah.
so funny you say that, actually, because that was like, with the sneers, that was like one of our hits was fun. What is that? You know, and the line of it's not that I can't dance, I just hate your music came from that one too. And I was like, yeah, fucking that shit translates throughout here. Well, that line actually came from this chick I was dating always wanted to go to the fucking Long Branch, and I'm not a cowboy bar kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, well, you just don't want to go because you don't know how to dance. And I'm like, literally, I'm like, well, it's not that I can't dance, I just hate this music. Why would I want to dance to it?
Oh, I call
And then
popular country pop cunt. It's the worst shit.
Less than 5 minutes in, I hope when he said cunt there. Yeah. Demonetized.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're not on you. We're not on YouTube.
I know. And we won't be at this pace. We'll continue to
Yeah,
stay as low to the ground as possible.
Well, I love old country. I like Hank Williams. I like bluegrass, Ralph Stanley. I love the old guys. You know, whatever. You know, even David Allan Coe, the outlaw country. Well, fucking even Kenny Rogers and stuff. But one of my favorite is for contemporary country. There's Hank Williams III, Hank 3. There's Wayne the Train Hancock, which is kind of very Hank 3 style. And then there's what is it, Bob? Oh, I forget his name, Bob something or another. I'll look it up. And then and he's got an album called By Demons Be Driven. And oh my God, it's one of my favorites.
That's a good goddamn title.
Yeah,
By
he's
Demons
pretty.
Be Driven.
Bob Wayne, yeah, Bob Wayne, and it's he's one of my favorite, like outlaw country. Driven by Demons is the album he put out in 2009, and
Who's
it's
the guy
sick.
that does that one, eating pussy and kicking ass?
Oh, I don't know.
You know that guy?
You have to excuse me
Who's
today.
Justin, if you're listening. I can't remember that fucking plays it all the goddamn time.
My COVID's acting up today.
Yeah. Oh, thank God.
Actually, I
The
was
end
up,
is near then, hey? Good.
the end is nigh.
I hope this is the end of times.
To be
I
honest,
keep
I
bringing
was.
it up, but I'm serious at this point.
Yeah, well, fuck it. It seems that
I'm
way. Man.
over it.
I was doing my apocalypse contingency plan, like out at the farm, you know, the Hellbound Hillbilly fucking getaway, and we got a burning barrel. It's pretty high end burning barrel. We're burning shit, and we're setting up the wood burning stove with the piping, and I didn't realize that aluminum tape, you know, like the aluminum stuff, has glue, and when you put it on that piping, it burns. And so my entire hillbilly shack got full of like burning glue, and I'm still having to set stuff up in there, and I'm doing some drilling and trying to seal up the windows for winter so no vagabonds break in and, you know, vandalize the place. And yeah, I think it's not COVID. It's just that my lungs are plastered with plastic
Poison.
smoke.
You're full of poison.
Full of poison. Story of my life.
I have absolutely more than once seen that happen.
Yeah.
Yep, been to people's ice fishing shacks or fucking weird little bush shacks or even garages where like I can just put a wood stove in. First time firing it up, yeah. And then
the fuck
fucking
out.
20 minutes later, we're all coughing on the outside, waiting
Yeah.
for it to fucking air out.
Well, you know what's funny? Because it reminds me of when I smoked meth. Like, for those that don't know, there was a 4-year period in my life in my late 20s that I smoked meth every day, and I was a pretty severe addict. And I'd wake up in the morning, and I would heave, and I would heave, and I would start gagging because my lungs were consistently covered with a layer of amphetamine film that didn't want to leave my lungs. And it got pretty bad. And it's interesting. Sometimes, if, let's say, I've got insomnia one night and I don't sleep, now that I've been sober for years, but if I have insomnia and I haven't slept enough and I get up in the morning and I go to brush my teeth, something in my mouth with the combination of not sleeping and being up too long and something going too far, I'm like, burr, burr, and it's just that same kind of trigger of, yeah.
Get meth lung. if you stay
Meth
up too
lung,
late.
old meth lung, yeah. It's funny because I got all my teeth and I'm not that scabby, so you know, or I wasn't that scabby, and I'm a bit of a picker. Every tattoo I get has like little tiny marks because I just don't want to let the scabs done. My ex, she's like, I'm surprised you don't have like more scars for the amount of meth you did and the amount you pick at things, but you know, that's just my personality.
Well, you got to keep that money
Emotionally, I did it
clean
emotionally.
and beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Picked at your scars
Is this good?
emotionally.
Yeah, exactly.
Got a lot of open wounds emotionally. Yeah. Some festering.
Yeah, my psyche is pockmarked.
Yeah, we've been
you know?
talking about chopping some stuff off. Chunks of my childhood, just lopping it off. Yeah,
Exactly.
See you
Nullify.
later. Well, no, actually,
Age-
nullify your childhood.
8 to
Yeah,
12
yeah.
nullified.
I fucking well, no, like we were just talking about furnaces kicking in. And I was saying how it's like one of my favorite sounds, and I think it does go back to my childhood because like Russ and I were just reminiscing about being poor, and about like fucking sitting really near to a furnace vent in the wintertime when it was like crazy fuck off cold and you're living in a shitty house, and it's like no legit you want to stay warm, you just gotta stay by the fucking vent, and like building little forts over it. And I was telling him I remember like sneaking slices of bologna from the fucking fridge and then like sitting there and like warming them up on the thing like I was doing something, like I'm out in the fringes here. It's just my bedroom, but it's fucking built
There's a
onto the house
reason for
after
me.
they built the house and didn't insulate that part for some reason, and yeah, shit like that.
Well, in Saskatchewan, for those that aren't local, it gets to minus 40, minus 30.
400,
Yeah.
fuck's sakes, man.
It
doesn't
gets
get
pretty
cold.
stupid out here. And it's funny, this shack that I got is from an old crazy cowboy who lived off-grid for 30 years. And as we were trying to clear it out, and figuring out what goes to the dump and what we can burn and what stuff we could reuse, it's like layer on top of layer on top of layer of cardboard, all on the floor, all against the wall, because he never insulated half the place, right? The walls are really thin, and that's his insulation. It's just cardboard on top of cardboard. So
How many years was he out there?
30.
Yeah, could have scrounged up for some insulation.
Yeah, yeah,
Plenty o' time.
yeah. He's got.
Yeah, you'll die out here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, build a house.
He's off in BC now. I
Yeah.
think the winters are a little.
Well, that's
more
what people kind of
reasonable.
tripped when we were telling them we live in like a tiny. For like 3 years, I lived in a tiny house.
That's
and
so crazy.
it's, like literally 250 square feet.
Yep.
But I mean, no, it's fucking small, so it's easy to heat.
But that was for 2 people living in there, right?
yeah,
That's 2 people in the size of a bedroom.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
I'm not saying
crazy.
you stay married. I'm just gonna say you can physically do it. I'm saying your relationship's gonna continue to thrive and work out, but
Yeah.
you can physically do it, and it's comfortable
Well,
because
what
it's
did they
like it's
say?
small, right? So you can like easily fucking heat it, and as long as you insulate it well,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
anything.
Well, and an extra body would probably help with the heat and stuff like that. What did they say? Familiarity tends to breed contempt. the more comfortable and familiar you are with something, the more you see every little nook and cranny and like chick, in the armor, and next thing you know, that contempt.
And that's the shit that picks at you then. Hey, instead of seeing the stuff that you appreciate of it. Oh yeah, like it's like having a car. You know what I mean? You walk up and you're like, how the fuck is it rusting? It's rusting, isn't it? And then that's all you see is like this rusty corner.
Well, there's the opposite side of that too, where when you're too comfortable in an environment or with something, you just glaze over all the other things that people that are first fresh there see. You know what I mean? Like my tattoo shop's a perfect example. Like we were setting up the tattoo shop and I'm like, oh, we'll finish that reno like later. Right. And we have other stuff we need to do. And I'm getting everything on the go. And fuck, it's been like 6 years and that reno never finished because we were too busy just doing our shit and it kind of got glossed over. And we don't realize people walk in the shop and they see an unfinished thing. Right. So
you guys just move in?
yeah.
You get that
still
lot
setting this up. I thought you were here a long time. Yeah. We're just fucking lazy and we don't notice it. Too busy doing other shit.
Bunch of goddamn artists in here.
Oh man. An environment gets stupid, especially when we had artists working the front desk, like musicians and visual artists working the front desk, as well as like 6 visual artists in the back. It's just so many fragile, huge egos in one little environment.
And everybody is fragile, but also constantly craving attention. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you just filled all these books full of fucking drawings for fun. No, you want to show them shits off. You want to get admiration for it. You want people to appreciate it. Well, and that's what you do with art.
My one front desk girl, she's a Taylor Jade, she's a talented musician, and she plays in a bunch of different bands. I asked her, are you gonna come to the tattoo convention with us? It's gonna be a fun time. The parties are usually pretty good and stuff. She's like, no, I deal with enough god complexes in one tattoo shop. I don't need a gymnasium full of them. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, god complexes. So yeah,
I created this.
Speaking of god complexes, some don't pay taxes.
Oh, getting political.
Yeah.
Well, it's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, you say what you want to say about this because I got some stuff to.
You probably know a little bit more than me. The Cheeto In Charge down south, Mr. Trump. He fought for so long that they couldn't get his tax records, right? You don't need them. Why do you need them? I don't know. I got a lawyer. Go through my lawyer if you want to need them. And he fought, so people couldn't see how much he was actually paying in taxes. And if you've been following our podcast for any period of time, like probably anyone other than this one, you've probably heard me rant about rich people using tax loopholes and avoiding paying their fair share of taxes, which would take the onus off the working class to pay for social services.
Yeah.
So the American system seems to be this like rich get ahead and the poor starve. Dog eat dog, but the laws are made to keep the most well-fed dogs well-fed and everybody else gets
doggy
fucked.
dog.
Yeah, doggy dog. Anyways, so yeah, apparently he's paid $750 taxes in the last 10 years before he became president, and I guess and it's all tax write-offs, and it's all I've had a business that's failing, so I can't afford to pay taxes.
All depreciation and losses.
Yeah.
No, he's had it where like he's buying businesses, and then all of a sudden their expenses multiplied by 5 times for some reason because he's running it. It's because it's all money laundering.
He wrote off $70,000 on a haircut or on a hairstyling.
I don't doubt it for a second.
Have you seen that shit? I guess you need to pay a high-end artist to cover up whatever the fuck is going on under that coif.
Well, and okay, so the crazy thing about the tax thing is that he has been saying the entire time that they've been under audit, and that's why he couldn't release them. No, I've been under this audit, and that's why you guys can't see them. Well, what it is that he's been having a court battle with the IRS because he got a $70 million tax rebate. And Cohen actually talked about that in his book and about how he was like, yeah, the government's such suckers. I can't believe they gave me this $70 million rebate. And so they've been fighting. The IRS has been fighting with him since then to
get it back.
To get it back because they don't think it's justified that he has it. And he's the president, so he can appoint whoever he wants to the head of the IRS to decide whether or not they actually do want to look into it and decide if he needs to pay that back. And showing by of the 20 years, they said 10 of them he didn't pay any tax. 2 of them he paid $750 tax. And so you're looking at somebody who, on paper, is either losing money or making no money for better part of 2 decades. How do you pay? A billionaire. How do you pay back $70 million then? You know what I mean? When the tax man comes for it, and $70 million is not $7,000. You go to jail for stealing $70 million from the government.
Well, it's weird because you steal an average guy, a guy like you, me, or Russ. We steal $7,500. We'll go to jail for 5 years. Somebody steals $75 million, they'll go to jail 3 months. It's fucked. That system
Still
is
go to jail,
insane.
though. I know it's not,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
not
well,
balanced, it's not
exactly.
equal, but you still fucking go to jail. You're still a felon after that.
You're a felon,
You don't
and
get
you
to
shouldn't
vote
be in
anymore
public
in their
office.
system, let alone how do you still get to be the president, right? So this is all coming out. And again, they've been trying to say, well, this is fake news, and they don't have, it's not the real tax returns, or it's not this, not, but they won't, his side won't release any of the actual information. They won't actually verify
Well, if
anything
it is fake
with anything
news.
truthful, because they can't. And they keep using these talking points of, oh, well, he paid, tens of millions of dollars in taxes in these certain years. And like, yeah, at the state level. He paid state income tax. He didn't pay his federal income tax. That's a different thing altogether. And he's been trying to avoid that. I think that's part of the reason why he moved to Florida, because I've been a New York man my whole life. Now he lives in Florida. Has changed his address to there. But the Southern District of New York and New York State has been going after him and his family, like the Trump Organization, hard. Like Eric Trump has to testify on, I think it's the fucking 7th of October here. And he's been trying to get around it. And they were arguing that it should be till after the election. When, what the fuck difference, right? Yo, no, my dad's president, though. Can we just wait till after the election? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and man, and it's just insane right now, the deluge of news, because there's almost a new book every 3 days from someone who is like interviewed him intimately, like Bob Woodward, like 18 hours of interviews, or someone who worked closely with him, like Michael Cohen for years and was his bag man and went to jail for something that he did at his behest, and if he was not president, would be in jail for right now as well.
Well, that's the quote from Michael Cohen that I just read. He's like, if I went to jail for tax evasion for 3 years
Yep.
for $3 million,
Yep.
this guy should be going for, 700 or 300
Yep.
years,
Oh, absolutely. Well, and they were looking through the information they had from his taxes. They were saying he's paid out more, he's earned more from the Philippines and the Ukraine than he did from the U.S.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, who do you work for then? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If I got 3 jobs and they're all part-time jobs, and they go, well, what's your main source of income? Is it being president of the United States, or is it some guy that made a bunch of money through his business interests in the Ukraine while he was president of the United States, or through the Philippines while he was president of the United States? And again, Ukraine, you start getting even greasier and greasier, because a lot of that is infiltrated by Russian oligarchs.
Yep.
And on top of this, it even showed that he has about $500 million, so $500 million in debt to other banks and governments from around the world. And when he's been showing a loss or only
Banks
paying,
and governments.
Yes, sir. So, well, because some of these are government banks.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Or it could be in his taxes as well, right?
Yeah.
Who fucking knows? He just owes $500 million to people that aren't the U.S., and somehow he's running the U.S. So who do you work for? When he's also it keeps bragging about how he gives up his $400,000 a year being president. I just gave that back. That's $1.5 million I've given back already for I didn't have to do. You know what I mean?
But you've got 500 companies.
And then he made while being president just about, I think, $70 million when you're supposed to be divested of your business interests.
Oh yeah, and he's
know what I
using
mean?
his presidency to book
Enrich
people
himself.
into his own, his daughter's book, his son's book, his own businesses, his
God.
own.
It's never ending. The RNC, when Donald Trump Jr.'s book came out, they bought literally rooms full of it, and just to make it look like it was a bestseller.
Oh,
No one
really?
bought these fucking books.
What's the RNC?
The Republican National Committee or
Oh,
Convention,
okay.
and that's who funds all Republican
So they bought the
interaction.
books to make it
they
look like
bought
it
it. Michael Cohen was one of the assistant. Fucking whatever, right near the top of the food chain. Anyways, for that, him and Elliot Broidy, who have both gone to jail for like money-related
Being criminal
bullshit.
fucks.
You've got what the fuck's his name? Brad Parscale was just arrested this weekend. So Trump had a bunch of different campaign managers, yeah, and one of them was Steve Bannon, who's in jail right now. Another one was
guy?
That's the Breitbart guy. Another was Paul Manafort, who's in jail right now. Another one was Kellyanne Conway, who stayed on and kept working for him, but then just recently quit her job under a veil of mystery about, I got to look after my kids during COVID when they're all in their teens, and she's been doing this job for 4 years now, and all of a sudden this is the time where she needs to take out and spend with her family. And her husband, George Conway, did the same thing, and he is a staunch fucking enemy of the president, basically. Like, he's a Republican, but he's of these Republicans that just want nothing to fucking do with Trump, and he's been actively writing papers, and he's got articles in the news. So while she's out there being a spokesperson for him, her husband's going out there and writing papers about how he's unfit to be fucking president. And
That's got to be complicated.
You'd think, right? So this has been going on the whole time, and all of a sudden now she's got to take time off to look after her kids. And if you know Kellyanne Conway, the idea that she's taking time to look after anything is fucking insane. So that's one of their.
So
other,
are these like rats jumping a sinking
that's
ship?
what it feels like, baby cakes.
Yeah.
If fucking, because then this Brad Parscale is another one of his campaign managers, and he was recently picked up because His wife was concerned that he was going to kill himself or somebody else. He was barricaded in the house with guns. SWAT team had to fucking show up at his place and then take him down out front. So they've got him, under watch for a suicide attempt. What's going on, right? You know what I mean? And I got to think all these guys, it's all going to be jail time. That's no one else has these kind of fucking reactions. When you're either ending up in jail, everybody around you that was doing the same job as all went to jail. And he's another guy who, after he had the position, all of a sudden had a Ferrari, had a condo. He'd never just,
oh really?
You know what I mean? Like these things were, however you get them, he get them, right?
Yeah,
not even
kickbacks or
that's
anything.
it. Because it's not always like, well, here they gave him $500,000. Yeah, in the form of this condo or a fucking fancy car or whatever.
Yeah. Here's just the keys to use this.
And he's a shady dude too. Like there was rumors that he had ties to white supremacist groups when he first started working for the campaign. Anyways, like, and he's this mountain of a Viking man. That's why they dragged him out at all these fucking different rallies to have this guy with this big beard, 6'8" or something like that, come out there and ramp the crowd up. But he was their IT guy, and supposed to be helping figure out how to really manipulate voters through using Facebook. And there was also some suspicion that he was working with whoever the fuck else was on the other end of the fucking Russian IP address that was stealing people's emails.
That's very interesting.
Right? And now, and this guy threatens to kill himself and has a big showdown with the cops.
So if you've been listening to us for any period of time,
I don't really like getting into it because it feels like it's like being political and you're attacking, but at the same time, I'm like, well, it's what's going on though. It's not. I don't even have opinion on this at this point. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. Brad Parscale had to have the SWAT team called on him because he tried to fucking kill himself. Yeah. The rest of these people all went to jail or quit their jobs under a shroud of secrecy. That's what's happening. A
whole bunch of his inner circle are getting arrested or jumping ship,
fucking nonstop. And it's
so.
And I mean, and if you,
I would love him to go to jail.
If you, well. It's one of the definite possibilities because by every consensus he should be in jail if he's not and even William Barr is basically one of the
if
only
he wasn't
people
president
saying
he'd be in jail. That's what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And even many other people believe that even though he is president he should still fucking be in jail because he was impeached in one branch of the government, and then the other side that is again the Republican National Committee had its two vice chairs go to fucking jail for money laundering related fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? This is what they've been doing. The NRA, exactly the same thing. They're all being torn apart. All these weird right-wing organizations like that are all getting torn apart at the highest level.
Well, it's because they pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, and they really made something of themselves. They did that hard work to get to the top of the heap.
And then use their connections to getting close with Russian assets.
Fucking over everybody and just being
steal and
corrupt
embezzle as much money as you can.
Yeah.
So, it's a wild... And it's so crazy because you don't even know what keeps... Like, man, the news... this time last week, I was outraged about the fact that there has been a doctor working the border by where they have these detention centers for immigrants that the immigrants have been calling the uterus collector.
Yeah,
because he's been giving women hysterectomies down there or partial hysterectomies and claiming that, it looks like you got cancer and this is the only way you can deal with it. And then after they're getting out and getting tested, they're going, well, no, you never had cancer. Mm-hmm. So, like, I mean, that's some
really
fucking
weird
Nuremberg trial shit. You know what I mean? Like that's a crime against humanity.
That was one of the first steps that they were doing with the Nazi regime is euthanizing and like stopping people that they
sterilize everybody you can, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And under the guise of I'm trying to save your life, right? We're trying to save you. You're not gonna, and most of them didn't even understand what the procedure was, let alone that they were being lied to blatantly, anyways. Mm-hmm. So
there's some strange.
Just added onto the pile of the fucking outrage.
I think I mentioned it last week. Like a buddy of mine's like, "What does it look like up in Canada when you're watching the American politics or what's going on in America? Not just politics, like the police and the riots and it's like it's a fucking dumpster fire. Yeah. Everything is like a powder keg. Yeah. It's like living above a meth lab. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the guy likes to do fire juggling at the same time. You know.
Well, and even that Breonna Taylor, like they.
Okay,
I mean, that's another one where there's been lots of purposeful misinformation or skewering of the facts to try and not make it look like it's such a big deal. Not make it look like it's kind of justified that she shot while in her bed.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? When they're doing this no-knock warrant on her boyfriend at her house, and it's at the point. It's like, why? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why do you need to? Because then the narrative they're trying to do, like, nobody at one point even justifies her being killed. It's all, well, I mean, we had to be there for him, and he fired maybe a warning shot, and we think that he actually hit one of the officers, and now they're doing the forensics.
Oh,
and
they think.
And then, the forensics says it's inconclusive. We can't prove that he was the one that shot him. And now he's got a fucking civil suit against the city for being wrongly fucking prosecuted, and it's really it's civil now. It's going backwards and probably going to have some sort of repercussions. But that doesn't get any sort of justice for people that want justice in these situations where it's over and over and over again. Seems that the cop gets time off or doesn't even get time off, and there's no blame assigned. And it's just one of those things that happened that basically, I mean, you can argue that she's not innocent because she's dating the guy who they're there to execute the warrant on, but fuck you at the same time, because I mean, come on,
it's a girl asleep in her bed.
I don't even know how to fucking defend that argument. You know what I mean? So that being said, there's I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say at this point now until I lost my train of thought.
Well, the dumpster fire, living like above a meth lab down there, and it's going to explode at any time. And there's riots in the street, and America's on fire. And
there's people within the Trump organization that are telling, like Michael Caputo, who just last week had to fucking take a leave of absence from his job and get yanked a bunch of shit off Twitter because he was he was telling people to stock up on ammunition because it's going to be hard to find, and make sure that you have some for after the election. Like
he's stoking the fires of the Civil War.
And this is a guy who was he fucking Secretary of Homeland Security or the Interior or something like that? Like whoever was in charge of the CDC, ultimately, that's what he was Secretary of also, and just recently appointed there. And it won't be now because there's no fucking way he's going to be getting back into the position after they're giving him any time off here after the crazy shit he said, basically telling everybody to prepare for a civil war.
Yeah, well, it seems to be the narrative down there where it's like there's this
Trump's warming everybody up for it too.
Well, there's a polarization, and I think that there's a real movement with rational individuals towards a progressive system. You know, like a democratic socialist system or a social democracy, kind of closer to what Canada is. You know, they just want a system closer to Canada, which makes sense because I love Canada for our benefits. Like, I'm not saying that this is a great, well, I am. It's a great country. It needs some tweaking. It needs some fine tuning, but our problems aren't nearly as exasperated as they are in the States. Huge issues going on with the native population, indigenous population in Canada, and I think they need to be tweaked, but it's definitely not mass murders in the street. You know what I mean?
Just some tweaking.
Yeah, well, I would say so.
Some light tweaking.
Well, man, you know, I think a lot of this comes with a culture that's a gun culture. You know, like, you glorified violence for the last 50 years, since the last war, you know, like, violence, you know, military service. It's the Roman Empire. It's a fascist empire. You know, you glorify your soldiers. You glorify violent movies. You glorify a gun culture. How do you deal with problems? You shoot the bad guy, you know? And then everybody adopts a gun culture. How do you police a gun culture? With increasingly hostile levels of violence. It's the only option. If anybody could have a pistol in their car, you're going to approach that car being ready to shoot or be shot. And it's a consequence of having a gun culture is having a gun culture. You know what I mean? Like, and I see that down in the States, right? Like up here, there's lots of gun ownership in Canada, but I'd like to think that most of it, there's some checks and balances. We've got restricted weapons. You need to have jump through some hoops. You need to have them secured. You can't be waving them around, taking them to Walmart. You can, first off, you can't own an AR-15 here. Second off, you couldn't put it over your shoulder and walk to fucking Walmart. You know, like that shit is not going to fly. And I'm not saying there isn't gun violence and, like, you know, accidents or tragic things happen with firearms, but I think our system is a lot more responsible when it comes to firearms. I don't want to get into it. We've gotten into it. It got hot. But I think down there, it's like, I've got a right. Well, okay, so let's talk about the Second Amendment, what it's supposed to mean in the States.
Can we talk about the Second Amendment?
The Second Amendment is supposed to allow the civilians, the citizens of that country, to overthrow a tyrannical government, right? But they don't really define what a tyrannical government is, and they neglect the fact that we weren't talking about 30-round magazines of a fully automatic semi or submachine gun. Ooh, yeah.
Bit of a whammy.
We weren't talking about, like, armor-piercing rounds that can shoot, you know, at 300 yards. That was written for fucking muskets, you know, like they musket. Yeah, this is the loading of a musket.
I like your musket motion.
Yes. That was written for fucking muskets. It wasn't written for 2020 military armaments.
Well, and I think even if it was, it's like you said, it's there to keep a tyrannical regime in check. Well, your government gets out of line, you guys can form a militia and you can fucking get your shit together and go, hey, straighten the fuck up. So, not to shoot your neighbor.
Okay, so now let's say there's a tyrannical regime, hypothetically, in
Yeah.
the States. And
Where?
let's say they're shooting people in the face and they're,
Right.
killing
Snagging
their
people off the
citizens,
fucking street in
grabbing them
unmarked
with like
vehicles.
no-knock raids and things like that,
Yeah, shooting people in their bed.
Where are these people that say, I need my guns for defending against a tyrannical government? Where are they? They're in the streets, bootlicking the fucking government, shooting the protesters that are saying, hey, our government's tyrannical.
Yep.
And they're the Second Amendment protectors.
Yep.
So these people that insisted on having these, they don't even know what tyranny is. They're bootlickers. They want to be on the side of tyranny because that because that tyranny protects their privilege. It's like, oh yeah, I'm white, I've got my little community of white people, and the cops protect the white people from the people that are different than me, and I want my traditional American family values, and that's why I have my gun. And and if you try to take that away, that's tyranny, right?
Yeah.
And well, no, I don't think you understand the definition of tyranny. That's protecting your privileged echelon at the top. Technically, tyranny is what that echelon is doing to everybody else.
Well, and
in
you
that
know what's
country.
insane too is that without the guns, you'd still have it. You'd still have white privilege. You'd still have that fucking ability.
But you couldn't shoot people that were different than you.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's the thing. And that's what they're really talking about when they say, I want to defend the Second Amendment. Well, they don't care about a tyrannical government. They want the benefits of a tyrannical government. And, take the immigrants out. Put the Mexicans back in the fields. Like, if they could bring back slavery, they would fucking jump on it. Most of those fucking
Well, they've been
people.
trying to maintain it with the prison industrial complex.
Yeah, exactly. But that's law and order,
That's
right?
modern fucking slavery.
You ask them, that's law and order. We're
Yeah.
just keeping our neighborhoods
Yeah,
safe.
law and order from the guys who constantly dodge the taxes and hide
Yeah.
their money in offshore accounts.
When the black or brown guy with a marijuana joint or a marijuana cigarette in his pocket gets like 4 or 5 years in jail for having a joint in his pocket because it's possession, or God forbid,
Grass. Some people are calling it grass. now.
yeah, the joint, the marijuana cigarettes, the reefer. So yeah, they get fucking like 4 or 5 years, or God forbid, it's his third strike in a third strike state, and he's fucking gone because that's keeping law and order. It's keeping community safe. If you ask these people,
Yep.
and they don't want to examine the nature of the law, and they don't want to examine who the law is actually victimizing, and they don't want to examine private, for-profit, like prison industrial complex, which is technically profiteering off of these kids they're throwing in jail. And those jails aren't the privileged white kids. They're unprivileged white guys, like white trash dudes who run afoul with the law, meet a profile, get stopped, searched, they find something illegal, you're in the system. Or it's brown and black kids. It's not the upper echelon suburban white boys,
And not because they don't commit crimes.
Yeah, they'll go to
Right.
those hoods to buy their fucking heroin and go back to the
these
fucking
dudes are
yuppie
felons in
parties.
their goddamn suit and tie.
Fuck them. Anyways, and then, mommy and daddy can get them out of jail with their connections or whatever, Or I'm a good upstanding member of the community. You see me at church, I'm a good Christian, and therefore. So it's like this theocratic vanguard down there where it's like this religious intermingling with politics. You've got the church and state, and it's one massive thing. You can't get into politics in the States unless you're going to these prayer lunches and,
Isn't that wild?
which church do you go to? Which denomination? What religion are you? That's what they say. What religion are you? When the question is actually, which Christian denomination are you? Or are you Jewish? Because that's an acceptable one. But, Christian denomination, Judeo-Christian denomination. You can't be Muslim. That's a sin. That's one of those Abrahamic religions, which is a bad one. So you're not allowed to bring Sharia law over here. We only want evangelical right-wing Christian law.
Well, which is what they're trying to do right now at the Supreme Court. They're trying to put this justice through right now since Ruth Bader Ginsburg died.
Yeah.
And so now
Who's this new person? I've seen her
I
picture
can't
floating
remember her
around.
fucking name, but her policy, like she's very Christian right, and there's real concern that that she is going to be trying to overturn Roe v. Wade. So then they're talking about like rolling all abortion rights totally fucking back, and once they've got a conservative majority in the Supreme Court, I mean they're not. It ultimately shouldn't matter because it's just supposed to be people who are knowledgeable of the law interpreting the fucking law as best they can to what the truth is.
Your personal political biases shouldn't
But
come into
unfortunately, when it gets down to things like abortion, that ties into like how do you get to your stance? It has to come from your core beliefs. You can't interpret the law on abortion. You have to either believe that life begins at conception and you're committing murder, or you're not. Sorry, I'm just
That's a
trying to
religious
dumb it-
interpretation
That's what I'm
of
trying
it,
to say.
yes.
I'm trying to dumb it down.
I
make it
would
the
love
religious
to see them
interpretation of
take
it.
science as best evidence.
Fuck. Right?
Right? Like,
But-
when does a brain activity actually happen? When
Yeah.
does, like, self-determination start happening in the
fucking Jesus,
wound?
right?
Womb.
But
When
instead,
the wound.
those kinds of big picture ideas are getting decided at the highest level by a 1-vote margin, based on somebody's
Religious
whatever stories they
fanaticism.
were told when they were a kid that stuck, that they
Their
continued to
invisible
fall
sky
throughout their
daddy
life.
mythology.
You know, like, and that's rough. And so that's one of the real concerns down there. Like, dude, they are as close to whatever the precursor to Handmaid's Tale is right fucking now as they've ever been.
Really?
Because legitimately, like, there's a few different theories of what's going to happen after the election. Basically, the only way that doesn't end in like some sort of a civil war is if somehow Biden wins by an absolutely undeniable landslide, like 80-20. You know what I mean? Like, it's so overwhelming. Everybody knows that you can't deny it. And then they think what'll probably happen is that Trump won't finish his term. He'll quit, and he'll get Pence to pardon him because Pence will become president until the 20th of fucking January, or whatever it is, whenever they have the inauguration. And then he'll pardon him for any crimes that may come out that he's committed while being president previously, and try and pull some shit like that. So that's one of the outcomes they think that works out best for probably everybody, because then the country gets back on track, there's no civil war, and Donald Trump doesn't have to go to jail then if it all works out for him. And there's still a smooth transition to power, because they don't think Mike Pence is the kind of guy that's going to fucking say, no, we're not
Be
going.
a fucking criminal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's still a piece of shit, but I don't know that he's got that level of balls on him to try and pull that off. It gets way murkier. You start getting closer to it's not a total blowout on behalf of Biden, or Trump looks like he's the winner on the night of the election.
Well, he's
because
already
of all
trying
the-
to
because of-
debate the mail-in ballots.
That's
and
it,
stuff
right?
Like that.
So then when that shit started happening, well, then you get all these different scenarios that play out, that like maybe all these dog whistles that aren't fucking dog whistles anymore, when they're telling them to load up on ammunition and make sure you're ready, that it might just be a fucking civil war. Exactly. There might be yeah, who fucking knows? But
So
it could
think
be
about
very
this.
violent, and then Trump deciding he just doesn't want to let it go, because if he doesn't get a pardon before he gets out, again, he's going to go to jail.
His whole, well, at least the last few years, he's been pandering towards a certain personality, and you see it in his votes. He's a tough guy, you know,
Yeah.
like the real guy, kind of guy you wouldn't mess with, and he's
Yeah.
trying to pander to
Well, the
you
law
know,
and order
the
guy.
police. Well, even no, like
That's
the
what he said.
bikers,
He
the
seriously gets a
bikers
law
for
and
Trumps.
order, law and
You know,
order.
he's like,
Yeah.
oh look, these are my tough buddies. These are
Yeah.
like solid police, solid military, tough guys. You know,
Yeah.
real don't mess with kind of guys. He's building a following of the white, tough, armed dudes, right? So these guys that are all like blowing smoke up each other's asses about a civil war, when this stuff, like the Second Amendment types, these guys that are showing up to the rallies with guns, the wannabe paramilitary dudes. This is exactly what Hitler did when he tried to establish, but he isn't doing it overtly, he's kind of doing it covertly, the SA, which were the precursor to when he came into power, he built his own personal army, the SS. The SA were the street soldiers that were above and different. They were politically motivated
Sure.
street soldiers that weren't part of the police.
Yeah.
They weren't part of the army.
Yeah.
They were his
These are your fucking boogaloo boys. And whatnot.
ideological fucking
Yeah.
armed thugs.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what these guys are. And so if this stuff is going to happen, and like, let's say, well, it seems almost inevitable, whatever the election results are going to be, he is going to contest it. He is
Yeah.
going to argue it's not valid, it's not
It's
valid.
fraudulent the whole time. And again, he's steering the ship.
Yes.
He's at the helm.
Yes.
There is no more, somebody else did this to me. You're the fucking one doing. He's shooting himself in the foot. He's sticking the stick in his own bike tire and then pointing at everybody around him.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, why did
it's
this happen?
insane, and people are still somehow believing it. People are still somehow like going, well, no, he could still be a good businessman and never pay any taxes and only ever lose money, and then get in a decade-long court battle with the government over $70 million he stole from him, and then he becomes president, and you think he's going to try and cover that up and hide it and get it to go away? Fuck, of course he will.
This is willful ignorance. People want to be ignorant to the situation. I saw this news article, and this guy was basically, I think it was a CNN guy. He's going up and he's like, so what do you think about Trump's claim of this and of this? And they're like, oh, it's fucking true. Okay, here's the evidence that shows it was a fraudulent thing. Like a doctored, one of them was
watched
the
that, yeah.
Biden sleeping
Yeah,
article.
yeah.
And it was obviously a doctored video. And they're like, yeah, he totally fell asleep. They're like, no, it's a doctored video. He's like, well, I still don't like him. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's true.
I
You know,
believe it
like,
could happen, the guy
They believed
said.
it could happen. Like,
Yeah.
fuck. They don't even give a shit when these lies are put in front of their face because they're willfully ignorant.
Well, and again, because they've all lived in this world of coffee shop conspiracies for years. Well, they're all in there taking bribes, and they're all in there raping kids, and they're all in there drinking blood, and they're all in there being lizard
and
people.
he's the only guy who isn't.
Yeah,
He's going to save us.
And they've always played this game where, and if it was never even true, they've always pictured it. So then once someone like that gets there and they're doing it, if it's their guy, they go, well, yeah, that's what they do. Isn't that what they always do?
Driving back from the farm today, and you got to keep in mind, for those people at home, we're in fucking Canada. Driving back from the farm, I'm at my corner. The guy right in front of me has a QAnon sticker in his back fucking window. So I'm almost thinking, now that they've got a nice simple logo, the Q, it's a swastika. It's the same. I saw this other news article that talked about how the QAnon conspiracy of an elite cabal of pedophiles and blood drinking, sacrificial, blah blah blah, running the shadow government. It is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion Revisited, which was like a fraudulent document that blamed the Jews. It was apparently written by one of the czars, and then it got readopted for justification in the Nazi Party, which blamed the Jews for all of the world's problems and globalization and liberalism. And this QAnon is basically the Protocols of the Elders of Zion Revisited. And all these people with a big Q everywhere, they might as well be wearing a swastika. That's all I see now. They're fucking whack jobs.
Well, in that same literature, I do believe Henry Ford widely dispersed as well.
Yeah, he distributed it along with... Everybody talks about Ford, right? He penned a book called The International Jew. And he was an honorary Nazi. Hitler brought him over to Germany. He said, look, here's an American who knows what's going on. And then everybody's like, Ford, or they shit talk Volkswagen, and they haven't fucking put together the fact that Ford Motor Company was like anti-Semitic and pro-Nazi before we went to war.
My boss actually was trying to make a point the other day, and I'm in the other room, but he's like, hey, you know who John Wayne is? Dusty's trying to explain it to this kid, eh? And I'm like, yeah, man, he was a Nazi. And he's like, wait, what? Yeah, him and Henry Ford, both fucking Nazis. You didn't know that? And he's like, no.
I didn't know John Wayne was.
Why wouldn't he be? Prove me wrong.
I remember the song, John
Prove me
Wayne
wrong.
was a Nazi.
Hey, that's all the evidence I have.
Yeah, right. MDC, man. Well, man, I could quote you the entire, okay, actually, this is great for anybody because it's a timeless song, and I could probably sing it first word to end, and it's Stars and Stripes of Corruption by the Dead Kennedys. It's off of, I believe, the Frankenchrist album. If you get a chance, look up the lyrics, listen to the song, and it basically, he wrote it, Jello wrote the lyrics probably in the 80s, I don't know, maybe 86, 87, about how the American structure is corrupt, and who's the real patriot, the Archie Bunker slob waving flags, or the people with the guts to work for some real change? Rednecks and bombs don't make us strong. We loot the world, but we can't even feed ourselves. Our real test of strength is caring, not the war toys we sell the world. So carry on, thankful to be farmed like worms. Old glory for a blanket while you suck your thumb. Real freedom scares you because it means responsibility. So basically, I showed this to my dad when I was in my teens. I'm like, look at this song. He's like, oh yeah, that's like the hippie songs. That's a protest song. I'm like, I think it's more than a protest song. This is almost a manifesto. Yeah, Stars and Stripes of Corruption by Dead Kennedys. It's one of my favorite songs of theirs, and it still rings true. It still rings true 30 years later. 30 years later, it's still fucking valid, and that's what blows my mind, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. When I was a teenager, I'm like, fucking Dead Kennedys, they know what's going on. And then in my 20s, I'm like, fucking Dead Kennedys had their heads up their ass. Jesus Christ. And now that I'm like in my 40s, I'm like, Dead Kennedys knew what was going on, right? And you can't tell me that America, well, maybe America went through a phase of progression and, people thought there was hope. Obama kind of represented maybe a new birth to, social systems of social safety net in the U.S., Medicare, something, representation in politics of like brown and black people, and all of a sudden, boom, it all dropped, and like, yeah, oh yeah, you guys had a chance, but now here's your white power, like,
Whoops.
fuck,
Whoopsie daisy.
uh-huh,
Did not go as planned.
no, yeah,
Oh well,
it's a
it's
tough
still
one.
going though. I think they can turn it around yet, but yeah, it's pretty fucking rank.
Well, and how much of it is fueled by social media? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, all the disinformation is. Legitimate news outlets aren't spreading disinformation.
Well, who are the legitimate news outlets at this time?
Just pick mainstream news, honestly, and go for the middle of the fucking road and pick what makes the most sense. You're going to get nuance and difference in all of them, but I think everybody who's like, well, this mainstream media said this and they said that, okay, there might be subtle differences, but if you can find core truths to it, that's just different. That's just different perspectives on the same thing. Then you got a thing like Fox News, which is going to throw you the totally
Propaganda.
opposite.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, right? When you find these outliers, the Breitbarts, the Infowars, the Fox fucking News, any shit you see on fucking on Facebook that feels like propaganda is propaganda. That's what they're doing.
Now, to be honest, would you consider something like Huffington Post propaganda, but for the left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very propaganda-y.
I
You know what I
agree
mean?
with
Yeah.
them. Don't get me wrong. I agree with HuffPost. I
Yeah.
agree with New York Times. I
Yeah.
agree with all these people that are fucking criticizing Trump. But I have to also recognize that they also have a narrative.
Yeah.
It's a narrative I agree with
Yeah.
largely, but
That's not journalism. That's editorialism to me, right? That's what you're doing. You're writing a story, then, right? If you're doing journalism, and I know, and I see it a lot of times when I watch the mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN, and shit like that, where they do, you can kind of feel their perspective, perhaps, or their bias towards the guest or towards the thing, but it's not necessarily even driven from a political slant. It's just like, no, this is a fucking ridiculous thing to have going on. And we can't believe it's happening. And then the other side can go, well, no, it's just because of your politics you're attacking him for giving women forced hysterectomies. It's just because of your you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just because of your politics you're coming in with that tone about it, you know? Where it's like, well, look at what's actually going on. Put the politics aside and he's removing women's uteruses. That's the fact of it. You know what I mean? And then I don't know how the fuck you have opinion on. And like, I think one of the best I enjoy listening to is Rachel Maddow. And I mean, you always know that just because if you know anything about her, that she is probably going to come from a relatively left-leaning point of view. But she doesn't interview like that. She interviews honestly, and she tells the story, and she tells the backstory of it. She gives you 40 years of fucking backstory of getting you up to the moment of why this is relevant. And I think that's an interesting way to look at the news, because it's, again, when you're getting all this history behind it that led up to this moment, you can have your opinion on what you see then, but when you know all the backstory to it, it's pretty fucking hard to misconstrue what they're trying to do at that point then. And she did a really great job of putting it together, like showing like Roger Stone's connection to Roger Ailes and to Nixon, and how these guys, basically tried to help build fake fucking news, basically. Like they started doing this 40 years ago and have been doing it and perfecting it all around the fucking world in all these third world countries. Paul Manafort doing the same shit, and then figuring out how to fine tune it and use it here on Homeland.
Yeah, well,
And it
propaganda
worked.
nation. Yeah, propaganda nation, right?
Yep.
You can steer people in the direction you want them to go if you can control the narrative.
Yeah.
You control the information.
And
you
again,
control
doesn't
perception.
matter if it's against their best interest. People constantly vote against their fucking best interest, right?
Well, I've heard, control information, control perception, control language, control information. So if you can imagine, like, this goes back to like the more like Japanese culture or almost dead languages like Sanskrit that have words to describe phenomenon outside of our really materialist society. Like Western culture is very materialist. We don't talk about things that are outside our sphere of tangible physical reality. But if you talk about like Sanskrit, you talk about a Japanese culture, they have words that are outside of that. But
Sorry, and I was going to say, and that's like integrated into would have been their daily life. Whereas, like, even if we do have those kind of concepts in our world, a lot of times it's attached to ceremony. It's going to church. It's going to whatever. It's not just about like being in touch with that shit on the daily and on the regular. And
well, there's the Western concept of religion is very literal. Like, these people read the Bible and they think they're literal stories. Like, it goes back to the whole evangelical right in the U.S., where these people are voting on abortion rights, on contraception, on gay rights, off of a literal interpretation of the Bible. They're not even taking the metaphorical meaning of the message. You know what I mean? How can you call yourself a Christian and not give a shit about people? right?
can't seem as one of the core
I'm a
things.
Christian, so I'm against abortion, I'm against gay rights, and I'm against, like, what does that have to do with
Well, it's
Christ?
because you care, though.
Yeah, you
Because
care about
it's-
people just like you.
Yeah,
And if
well,
they're not like you,
care about
fuck 'em.
maintaining it. Yep.
Yeah. So it's weird. So you control information, you control a narrative. So propaganda aims to do that. These companies, they're controlling what, if they can control what you see. They can control what you think. If they can control what you hear, you can control what you think. A buddy of mine, he works for Nutrient Potash. He goes down to the States all the time. He's been to places in the South where the only news you're getting is pro-Trump. You don't get the alternate opinions. You don't get liberal opinions. You don't get progressive, what I would consider progressive or liberal.
Well, and what's interesting is even on like the more liberal programs, like they still continually have people from the right onto the program so they can have the discussion, whereas Fox News very rarely does that, and if they do, it's generally they do things like because I was just watching this guy who does kind of a more of a left leaning kind of a news program, and he was on Fox News recently, and they do things like they light the liberal poorly. So you look pale or jaundiced.
Oh, really?
And
Like
whereas,
lighting is
yes,
done badly.
Yes. So like there's three pictures on the screen.
That's like our podcast. You're the bright one, and I'm in the dark shadow. Yeah,
exactly. Right. And so, but that, I mean, if you're doing that intentionally, well, then it helps paint a picture of them being this pasty, anemic fucking kind of loser. Where the other guys, the way they're lit, they look tan. They look like football players. You know what I mean? And so they do shit like that on purpose, right?
Yep. Well, it's the same thing as like framing the vegans as being like the frail little breakable soy boys and all of that stuff, right? I'm like, for the record, I'm fucking vegan. Anyways, that's the thing. You control a narrative and you can control people's opinions. They don't want to be the liberal because the liberal is weak. The liberal is sick. The liberal is a snowflake. The liberal is a crybaby.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about this for a while where all these punch-a-Nazi people. There's a few different issues I have with the punch-a-Nazi crowd, okay? First off, and I'm going to call it the punch-a-Nazi crowd because it's not all left-leaning people. It's specifically the people that are, like, pro-violence against the right, okay? Or against not punch-a-Nazi crowd. First off, I'll get in debates with the punch-a-Nazi crowd because some of these people are like, might makes right is the worst fucking thing in the world. If you believe that at any time that might makes right, you're a fucking fascist. And then they turn around and, I want to punch a Nazi. Well, why? Because you suddenly believe that violence is the way to achieve your political ends? And they can jump through all the mental and semantic gymnastics to justify how punching a Nazi is not violence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, it's fucking violence. And sooner or later, if you say that I'm going to punch a Nazi, that's cool because you suddenly believe that might makes right. Right? You have to punch a Nazi because sooner or later, punching has to happen. Like I'm not saying it's right or it's ethical and civilized, but you remove that civilization, it boils down where some people need to get a fucking shot in the head. And I'll agree with that. I'd prefer a civilized discourse, but if it gets to the point where civilized discourse is no longer an option, you better know how to punch. And you don't see these people in the jiu-jitsu gyms. You don't see them at the firing range. You don't see them doing at the physical exercise. Yeah. You see them on the internet theorizing.
Yep.
And that's
what's a lack of balance from both sides, right? Because you got one side that's doing that all the time,
and they're scared,
but they're not doing any self-analyzation. They're not doing all those other things the other side's doing. And like I see, and it's hard for me to relate to any of that because I'm just like I don't feel like I am that. I feel like
you're a liberal that will hold your own.
Well, because I feel like a person should be a balanced person, and I feel like empathy and caring and thoughtfulness should be part of how you fucking live your life. But you should be able to be firm and take your stand and all that kind of shit if you have to, right? And I feel like that was like I'm not trying to say I'm trying to live like a fucking samurai, but I'm saying like that was part of like that culture where you were to be you needed to know how to farm, you needed to know how to fucking manage your money, you needed to know how to be a warrior, and you needed to know how to like take care of things. All in the times when you needed to know how to do those things.
Okay. Samurai, I think, are a poor example because they're some of the most corrupt aristocrats you've ever fucking met. Oh, because I know so many. No, but like samurai culture, we're fucking like the result of an aristocracy where the rigid roles. A samurai could test how sharp their swords were without recourse on anybody in a lower class than them. They could kidnap your daughter and just keep her as a sex slave because they're a samurai. Like, there was no consequences for samurai. And so that's kind of a poor example. There's been this movement to nobilize them over the years. Like, they're the noble warrior, but they were pretty fucking evil. A lot of them were really fucking evil. But I like the idea or the model of, like, let's say the Buddhist, the Shaolin monks. You know what I mean? They're working on their ethics, but at the same time, they recognize that sooner or later they might have to defend themselves. But they practice and they do this in the most noble way possible, and they look at entering into violence as being like going to a graveyard. As a matter of fact, I think that's what Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching talks about. The wise man enters into violence as though he was attending a funeral. He doesn't do it with joy, and he does what he has to do, and he looks at it with great sorrow because it's a last resort that he wishes he doesn't have to do. As opposed to the samurai, they really wanted to be able to get the chance to fuck somebody up, right? But the culture of violence, and being ultra prepared for violence, as opposed to, yeah, I train for violence, but I also balance it out with the farming, with the meditation, with the poetry, with everything else. And, I'm good with people. I try to be good with people. I think there's an imbalance. The left, they got all the idealism and none of the practicality. And the right, they've got a lot of practicality, but not a lot of self-work and not a lot of idealism. And I follow a lot of like right-wing people online. Like some of the harshest racists, the harshest right-wing people. The one guy, oh yeah, I've been doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu since 94. Yeah, I go to the gun range like 3 times a week. And this is a tattooer, you know what I mean? He's like, yeah, I'm ready to fucking throw down if I need. You can't show me any of the like really political like left that are in the same boat. I don't see them training. I don't see them ready for this civil war that might break out, which is a tragedy.
Maybe it's because they haven't been picturing it, though.
The other people are preparing for it. Fascists regularly prepare for war because the core value of fascism is military might. It's a principle of fascism is strength culture and like that. Being able to, imperialism is a big part of fascism. We need more room for our nation. We need more room for our people. We need to secure our little group. As opposed to liberalism is we all need to get along. We need to help out those that aren't strong enough. While the fascist principle is only the strong should rule the ones that aren't strong, right? So it's a tough nut to crack, all the punch the Nazi crowd that are like, I'm going to punch a Nazi. And then what? When he pulls a knife or he pulls a gun. You cry on the media. Oh my God, I got shot. Yeah, because you fucked with a fascist. And fascists want to hurt you. And you're not ready to fuck with a fascist. A skateboard truck versus an AR-15, you lose, I don't know. It's a tough nut to crack. There's some strange stuff happening down there. What a downer.
What else you got?
Well, I got vasectomies. I got left-hand path, right-hand path. So basically, okay, we're talking Freemasons, mystery traditions. Freemasons and mystery traditions are based off of esoteric philosophy, right? Basically, either the Hermetic sciences or Kabbalah or yoga or esoteric Christianity kind of comes into play with that, tarot cards and things like that. And usually there are 2 paths, left-hand path and right-hand path. And right-hand path are kind of like the white knights. You slowly refine your morality to become more of a better person. And as you're a better person, you achieve increasingly refined versions of your ethics and of your morality and your perception and your worldview. And you become enlightened that way through slow moral refinement. Left-hand path is largely smashing through boundaries and hard discipline and judgment and all of the dark spooky stuff, right? So the Christians would be like a real Christian, not like the fundamentalist like lunatic Christians, would be considered right-hand path people, where they're slowly refining their morality through charity and generosity to become a better person. Now, what the Satanists would traditionally be would be a left-hand path, or the Agori sadhus in India, which would like literally practice cannibalism or necrophilia or living in cremation grounds as part of their ceremonies, would be the left-hand path. They're doing ego-challenging rituals, right? But you kind of have to go through judgment and severity to go on the left-hand path. But it's interesting because politically, the right-hand path of charity and goodwill and, nurturing is usually left-wing politics. And the left-hand path of judgment and severity and militance is right-wing politics. Now, most of these mystery traditions, the Freemasons and, like the Rosicrucians and the secret societies, they advocate usually for a middle path, the balance that you're talking about, right? And it's quite interesting in that almost all of the old school American founding fathers were members of these secret societies. Skull and Bones Society, the Freemasons, a few others. The Bushes were all Skull and Bones people. And it kind of freaks me out because I wonder in a lot of ways how much before the shit show that we face now is based off of this New World Order that is on the American dollar bill and what the real New World Order or Order of the New World would be, right?
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because it's there's so much information tied to all those groups that you're like, is it just for brotherhood? Like, is it just to be part of this thing, to say you're part of it, to be part of this club and hand down these traditions and know these things, or is there actual value to it? Like, are you actually
becoming a better person?
Are you controlling knowledge? Are you controlling what is happening behind the scenes because you're parts of these groups that don't have to have a public facing figurehead or anything like that? And
well, if you're not doing anything that needs to be hidden, why isn't your organization transparent? No.
See, that again, right? That's kind of the question. Why do you belong to this big, massive thing that's gone on for hundreds of years if it's just for fun, just to get together once a week and do this thing?
The Freemasons have a saying, and it's, we take good men and make them better. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they do it, but there's a whole bunch of allegory. You have to, there's plays that they play out. There's morality hidden in mythology, I guess, just like, I guess, a religion. But, and there's fraternity, I guess. So you've got a group of people that support you, and you have networking. Now, if you take all the esoteric shit out of the Freemasons, at its root level, it's a society of men who largely have influential connections. So you're in a chopper club, right? The Bastards. Now imagine instead of you guys about choppers, you were about morality. Now also imagine that you have city planners, and you've got the mayor, and you've got the police chief, and you've got the fire chief, and you've got like licensing, and you've got all these people that are in the Bastards. So you can't tell me that a closed fraternity of boys don't get together and say, hey, what's going on in the city? I saw this new development down the street. What is that all about? Oh, that's a low-income development. I don't know if I like it there. No, we're going to call Joe over here. Joe, we're not going to put that there, okay? Oh, okay, no problem. Because they're all bros in a closed society. Now, that's all of, like, the secret planning out of it. That's just boys having beers and that are all in the same place at the same time, that are friends. Now, if you put an agenda on top of that, an organized agenda, where this is the world we want and these are the steps that we're willing to take to get there, how far can that go when you have influential members of society?
Well, and it's supposedly gone across oceans and built countries, and as ingrained in our foundation as it is the Americans.
I went to Cuba, right? And we're cruising along, and there's Freemason temples in Cuba. So this society, it spans across embargoes. It you can't get fucking American ketchup in Cuba, but you can be a Freemason. And you can travel, and Freemasons can go to that temple, and it's a secret society. It's a private secret society. You know the special handshakes, you know the right terms to put into a conversation. You're allowed to be put into that lodge. You get to meet and greet who's the influential people that were also allowed into that lodge. And I don't know. I'm interested to a degree in the Freemasons. I don't necessarily believe that they are as, I guess, malevolent, like a malevolent cabal of controlling influence. But there's also, I think you can't argue with the fact that there's influential people that are part of the fraternity. You know what I mean? Let's say you wanted a job in politics. Well, you're going to join the club where everybody's involved in politics. You want to get into those country clubs. You want to meet those people. Well, that's the easiest way of doing it, is getting involved with the clubs with those people that can get you a job. If I'm part of a fraternity, and let's say you run a business and I'm out of work. Hey, buddy, we're bros. You hook me up? Oh, fuck yeah, we're bros. I'm going to hook you up the best I can. That's just like, but now you take that on an international level, and that's freaky. And then you've got...
And that's freaky.
That's freaky, especially when like politicians and congressmen and like lawmakers and lobbyists are all part of this whole deal. Like, Man, it makes me wonder if like there's people that are their goal is to help each other get affluent. You know, let's make that money. Let's
For
make
sure.
that money. You know, let's get you approved for that building permit, whatever it is, right? So yeah, that kind of freaks me out. If I were interested in that stuff and like getting formally involved, it would be more for the esoteric spiritual information that was supposedly hidden in there, right? So
Well, and there's lots to decipher. Like, even if a person gets a chance to just look at sort of any, like, I'm just looking at your books here, but any sort of Freemason paintings or anything like that, the symbolism is really deep. Like, everything is something.
Yep.
And it's not just the moon, it's not just the sun, it's not just a pillar. You know, like, it's
No,
all
they're-
about balance and light, and the feminine and masculine as well. I know, like, the chalice and the spear, or the chalice and the sword, are both big parts of their imagery as well. And
well, there's skull and bones. Like I know these are all like the pentacle, the checkered floor, you know, between like conscious and unconscious. The left and right pillar is also left hand path, right hand path. The stairway leading to the sun is the ascending, like through
the
different
Jacob's
degrees.
the Jacob's ladder.
It is a Jacob's
Yeah.
ladder.
And that's interesting actually, because like even just looking at this, like at this painting right now, when you're talking about that, we've got a sun, we've got a moon, we've got two pillars, we've got that how did you just describe it?
The checkerboard floor?
Yeah, how did you describe it?
But between conscious and unconscious.
There we go. And it's almost like, so you get to that level of being between these levels, and you can ascend to this higher level of balance between light and dark on top of these pillars.
Yes.
Like, and I'm not even just applying that. I believe like that is a lot of the symbolism actually attached to this shit. And it gets insane. Like when I was in Paris, went to Notre Dame, and that's built by Masons, and the entry, when you walk into it, it's all just columns of stories being told through sculpture and meaning and shit all deep into it. And it's like, and every inch of it was touched like that, you know, like this whole huge massive entryway. And yeah, so there's lots of fucking, if you get a chance, just look at that shit and just try to decipher it, or find somebody who knows something, or find a book on it and try to learn it, because there's meaning and stories in all of it.
Well, and that's what the mystery traditions were based off of. Actually, this is kind of interesting. It goes back to, okay, so who was it that burned the Library of Alexandria? Was it the Romans? I forget. So there was this Library of Alexandria, and it contained all these scrolls of the world's information. We're talking about like Sufism, old school Islamic esoteric stuff. Apparently, the knowledge that the Egyptians held, like all of like these people got put. They were tasked to go get scrolls of the world's knowledge and put them all in one place, the Library of Alexandria. And then I forget who, but I'm pretty sure it was the Romans, the Catholics rolled through, and they burned the Library of Alexandria. So the world's esoteric or spiritual or psychological knowledge got lost with this huge burning. Now, what the mystery traditions supposedly did, these underground societies like the Freemasons or the Rosicrucians or the Ordo Templar Orientalis, what they supposedly claim is that through the Knights Templar, the story is that when they were securing, fighting the Crusades down in the Holy Land, Jerusalem, that they found information surviving, and they brought it back, and they had the hidden gems that spirituality was supposed to be based on. Now, the Catholics wanted to call it all heresy. And if you got found out practicing any of these ancient religions or all these old like pre-Christian belief systems, you were a devil worshiper. You were going to be burned. So they had to go underground. They had to become secret societies. Otherwise, they would be murdered. Which makes sense why something like the Freemasons or the Rosicrucians or the Templars would be secret societies. Because if we're going to be practicing what's real religion or understanding the foundations of what religion is about, we need to be in the shadows. Because if we're out and about, we're going to be murdered. We're going to be ostracized. We're going to be called Satanists or whatever, right? So we need to be secret Joes. Now,
Secret Joe.
well, even herbalists, like women that back in the day would perform herbal abortions, or healing with like the local foliage, First Nations medicine, stuff like that. They were witches. They were burned as witches.
Goddamn witchcraft.
And then they said only men should be able to practice medicine. You women can assist the men in practicing medicine, but if you are doing herbal medicine, you're a witch, and all it takes is an accusation, and we're going to murder you. Same thing with the Freemasons or the Templars were killed for being Satanists, for worshiping the Baphomet, and they were accused of heresy and put through the Inquisition and the whole nine, and they were executed. So what they say is the information that was hidden in Library of Alexandria, basically the Hermetica and the Kabbalah and the yoga systems, and there's a bunch of the different philosophies, Western esoteric magic or Hermetic magic, tarot cards, were passed through these secret societies. So they are the carriers of what real religion is supposed to be about. Now, I don't know if like the 3 Masonic lodges in Saskatoon give a shit about that anymore. You know, if they're actually in the libraries digging into it and doing the work, or if it's just a beer club. You know what I mean? But I there is a sect of the Freemasons which are esoteric Masons, and I've met 1 or 2 of them, and they're fucking rad people. I have great conversations with them.
What's the 33rd degree Masons?
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Well, my
echelon, you start learning the real secrets.
Well, yeah, and I think that's when you can become a Shriner, or you can move on to all these different organizations, but you have to kind of jump through the degrees of Masonry before you get to that stuff. But Masons are just the most well-known, like the Bushes, and they were part of the Skull and Bones Club, which is a very elite invitation-only secret society. I forget which university they recruit out of. It might have been like Yale or something like that, you know, blue chip, high-end, you know, colleges, and they pick you. We want you to be part of our secret society, and then we're going to groom you for levels in the American government, you know, and I'm not sure if they're Masons, but then there's, what is it, Bohemian Grove, are you familiar? Fuck.
Love me some Bohemian Grove. I'm going to figure out how to get in on that.
Oh, Jesus, just get a job there. I think you couldn't even get a job there if you weren't in the right circles, you know, even dishwashing or, you know, doing guarding.
Yep.
It's weird because I first heard about Bohemian Grove through an Alex Jones movie or documentary. And it was when he was young. I think it might have been in like the 90s. And Alex Jones had somebody infiltrate with a camera and videotape some of the weird shit they were doing. And they say it's just a play. It's just a play. Sure, there's a huge owl character, which is like Moloch, the devourer of children, is like symbolized in the owl. And yeah, sure, we do burn a person in effigy, but it's all just a play. It's an allegory. It's just like, yeah, we're all wearing black hoods, you know, and people are all standing around on this huge stage doing a crazy ritual where we burn an effigy and shit. And they're all like
Out in the wilderness, by the
out
way.
in the wilderness. Yeah, in huge redwoods on a private area with like guards and stuff. And but it's just good old boy fun.
That's what I'm saying, right? All
yeah.
these things. Hey, is it just a fun weekend? Is
Yeah,
that
you
why
just got to
do
be
that?
super rich to
I
get
like
there.
to once a week just to get together and
Yeah.
practice handshakes.
Titans of industry, you know? And so it makes me wonder, is that part of this stuff? Like, why are you guys doing fucking theatrical rituals? Why are you all getting together and putting on clothes?
Well, that's the secret, Pat.
Yeah, and
you
doing
have to
theatrical
partake in the
rituals.
ritual to learn the secret of the ritual.
I saw some interviews with like some big hip hop guys, and they say on a similar but different level in the entertainment industry, you get to a certain level and there's a door you can go through. And the one guy, it might be Jay-Z, it might be somebody else, I forget. He's like, I don't know what it is, if it's Illuminati shit or that gay shit, but I'm not going through that door.
Jesus Christ.
Because I think a lot of these guys, they're like, hey, you could come to this party. You should come to this party, and really lots of networking going on at this party will get you like contracts. It'll get you videos. It'll get you, you know, a yacht, whatever. You should come to the party. I don't want to go to that party. You know, Epstein party, you know?
Yeah,
Well, what do you
right.
do? You go to the party and there's like 12-year-old girls walking around,
Well,
right?
and, that,
And
so
like,
that's going to be the other angle in a lot of these things, too, is, right, you get this brotherhood, this camaraderie, and then you get leverage over everybody.
Yep.
And then you have to continue being part of it, and you have to keep the secrets because yours can't be exposed either.
Well, yeah, that's that. I wonder about that, right? So I think it's fairly well established that there are places in this world where human trafficking happens. You can go to a human auction. It might be in Dubai. It might be in Saudi Arabia. It might be in Tokyo. It might be in New York City, Montreal. It could be in Montreal
right.
or New York City. Well, these places are like the big urban centers in this world. Who goes there? Who would purchase the people? And how can they get people to do that?
It's fucking that's the crazy thing about all this is that like it exists. You know what I mean? Like there has to be a market for this, and it can't be 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 or 100 or 1,000 people. You know what I mean? Like it has to be thousands of people.
No, it could be 1,000 people that all have a lot of money to justify how this stuff goes. Drug lords, you know.
Yeah, it's like the same 1,000 people showing up all over the world to.
Yeah. 300. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like for anything, for the amount of number of people we have in this world, for things to exist, it's thousands of people that are involved in it. There's not a thing.
Well,
that
okay,
exists
it
that there's
depends on
100
what you
people
mean.
doing it.
I'm talking about the purchasers, the people that can actually afford. I'm giving you $750,000 for this person that you've kidnapped, and I'm just gonna.
I think you're overselling it by like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think there's children being sold for $15,000 right now.
Oh yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
going to happen for sure. I'm talking about like the high end human auctions in like
Okay,
Dubai,
sure. Maybe there's
or
1,000 people in those ones, I guess.
yeah,
So
that's what
just
I'm
saying,
talking about. Is
this-
like the high end where like they've got like yachts and like the Epsteins of this world.
Sure.
And the Epstein, like there's one of his accusations about Epstein was that he had 2 or 3. Are you snoring over there? Oh, okay. He had 2 or 3 12-year-old French girls delivered to him. So somebody took these girls, put them on a fucking plane, delivers them to the island. They get used for a weekend and they get sent back. Somebody got paid for that. Either the parents of these kids got paid for that, or the pilots got paid for that. The people that delivered got
Or
paid
what's
for
even
that.
more likely was the orphanage or the
Orphanage,
fucking,
yep.
the foster home system.
Yeah, the nice Catholic,
Well,
Catholic
there
run.
was just an article I was reading about this priest who the diocese had given him a plane to fly around to all these fucking northern communities to check in during residential schools, and they figure he molested over 500 boys.
Well, there you go.
In a private little fucking plane that he could fly to every little bush town and stop in and ruin everybody in the area's life.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
documentary just came out. Fuck, I wish I should
Destroy
have
some
written it
children
down.
while
I should
you're
have
at
written
it.
it down what it was called actually because it just came out and it's heavy.
Well, I think that there's a lot of underground corrupt shit going on behind the scenes. And that being said, I think Q is touching on it. And I think we might be talking about very similar things, but there's the stuff I believe in, but I also don't think Trump is the great white hope to
Oh
stop
no,
it.
I feel like again, it's like any good disinformation campaign. There's a bunch of truth of these things really exist tied to it, but these aren't the guys telling the truth about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, if they can play a disinformation campaign so well that they think one of the scumbags is the savior, like if you think Donald Trump, the guy who ran the Trump modeling agency and had like high
Universe.
14-year-old girls with billionaires in fucking Trump hotels and saying, "Oh, this is a really rich guy. He could really make your career. You should go for a walk with him and see what you guys could talk about." Fucking giving kids cocaine and hooking them up with old pedophiles, basically. You think that guy is the hope to destroy like the pedophile conspiracy? He is the poster boy. Like Donald Trump is the poster boy for that stuff. You see the videos of him and Epstein grinding. He's like cruising on like a bunch of like barely legal models at a nightclub. Like, oh man, these guys are in cahoots. They're not like, he's not like, sorry, this isn't my bag. I'm above it. I'm get out of my
They
hotel.
belong to the same clubs.
Yes.
They lived in the same place.
Yes.
They lived in fucking Palm Springs.
So yeah, that's what really blows my mind, and he's kind of got his big toe in there at the very least, if not his whole like body dived in, right? So it's a tough one. It's a real tough one.
Yeah.
Again, when I was in Tokyo, I saw like a lot of wealthy people, and in a town or a city like that, well, people go missing from Vietnam. They go missing from Cambodia, Philippines, Thailand, all the time. And just the content of the adult industry that they have in Japan, if that's fictional, like some of the snuff porn or rape porn or pedophile porn, that stuff's happening in reality. If somebody's willing to pay a few $100s to watch it simulated, they're willing to pay thousands to see it for real.
Yeah, it's just up the scumbag food chain, right?
Yes.
They got the means.
Yeah, you have the means; they can get away with that, whatever evil shit they want, And that's I don't trust it. I don't trust it. So that upper echelon.
You don't trust international pedophilia ring?
I don't trust money. I just don't trust.
Yeah,
I don't
no
trust
shit,
money.
right? Stay poor, people. Stay poor. Having
Yeah.
a lot of money, I think, causes too many fucking problems.
Yeah, I just don't trust it. I'm trying to hit bottom.
Hey, I'll see you there, buddy.
Yeah.
I'll save you a spot.
I got my
fucking
hellbound
talking
hillbilly
about-
fucking getaway
Yeah.
out there. Literally, I've got a burning barrel with a grill on top, like like a metal grill. This is probably where we're going to be cooking. I don't want to like.
You can have a barbecue if you want.
I got a good friend, and he's like, I want to become a billionaire, and then I'm going to try and make it so everybody could be a billionaire. Like, that's not how you do it, man. You dismantle the fucking system. You don't
Right.
aim to be part of the system
Right.
and kill it from inside.
Yeah.
That's like me saying,
Keep building wealth so that you can have the opulent levels of wealth. Well, the things you get from opulent levels of wealth are built on the back of other people.
yeah, and you don't.
You don't maintain your fucking jetliner. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
you're not maintaining the grounds on your mansion.
It's like, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to go to police college. I'm going to become a corrupt cop. I'm going to like beat a lot of people so I can get into the corrupt cop crew. And then I'm going to destroy it from the inside. No, you're
Serpico.
not. No, you're not.
I'm Serpico.
Yeah, like shit. That's not gonna happen. By the time you get there, you're corrupt motherfucker. You know,
you're
I don't.
compromised.
You can't really become a person of that echelon without fucking people over for a living. Literally fucking people over to survive. I don't know anybody who earned $1 billion ethically or legally, or I don't know an honest, hardworking individual who became a billionaire. You know, and so. I think you have to be a sociopath to some degree in order to fuck over the people you need to fuck over to get there. And when you get there, now you're a sociopath with $1 billion.
Right?
So
Yeah, how is that better?
interesting.
Keep sociopaths poor.
Yeah. Or radical idea, eliminate sociopaths. Now,
Start fixing the core problems.
Now I'm going to talk about the esoteric stuff for a second again, where like Jewish mysticism, right? So in Jewish mysticism, being Kabbalah, this is also what the Hasidic Jewish community is based off of, Chabad philosophy. The Jacob's ladder is climbing what they call Sephiroth, which are divine principles or personality types of what they consider the divine personality, but they're also mirrored in the individual, right? So you've got, you know, basically, you know, right there. It's late night. I know it's like 8 p.m. So like the idea are the Sephiroth are sort of like emanations of God, right? But and they're only emanations of God because the light of God or divinity shines through them. Now, on psychological interpretation of a Hasidic philosophy, this is the light of empathy through your personality. Now, as long as the light of empathy is going through your idea on generosity or judgment or rational mind or emotional mind, as long as the light of empathy is shining through there, they're positive attributes. Now, if you remove empathy and consciousness from them, they become what are called clifoth, which are husks or shells of these principles removed from empathy and compassion. Now, basically, if the Jewish mystical tradition would say something that is removed from the light of the divine becomes a clifoth, which is basically sociopathy, right? You think about it, a personality type where empathy and compassion is removed and all that is important is the self-interest, regardless of compassion, that becomes what they would consider, well, demonic, or they call it clifothic, you know, a sociopath.
Sure.
Right? So think about it. A sociopath is operating on a very me and mine. I am the important thing and everybody else can get fucked. And I'm so important, I can hurt you if that benefits me. And it doesn't even affect me because I don't have conscience or empathy anymore. It's just me, me, and mine. Now, it's very interesting if you consider that this principle on a very fundamental level, you have empathy and compassion on one hand, and you have self-interest on the other. Empathy and compassion, left-wing politics. Self-interest, right-wing politics. Empathy and compassion, social workers, you know, addictions counselors, doctors, nurses, you know, people that are trying to help people. Without compassion, you've got fucking, well, you know, I would say some cops are on here. But then you also have cops over here, and you have self-interest politicians and lobbyists that are only interested in money and fuck the environment, fuck small communities, fuck the people that are addicted to my product and they're all strung out. My profit is important, right? So it's almost like this system. If you look at like these, the Jewish mystical tradition, which is the foundation of Abrahamism, which includes Christianity and Judaism and Islam. These systems and the entire system that we're living under, being a capitalist oligarchy where the people with the money make the rules, they create the laws to keep themselves in power, and they're fucking sociopaths. The entire system is reversed. It isn't moral. It isn't rewarding immorality. It's rewarding clifothic behavior.
Yep.
The more sociopathic you can be, the better in the corporate capitalist community.
This is perfectly embodied in Trump's argument of why would I pay more tax? Why should I pay tax? Why shouldn't I try to not pay tax?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm important.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
I'd be a dummy. I'd be an idiot to pay tax.
Yes, because you're part of a community of others,
Yeah.
and other people are important,
Yeah.
and the community
And it
is
provides balance to the fucking amount you've taken because yours is disproportionate.
yes. Well, and that's just it. And if you can give to others or share with others, everybody benefits. And the more I, me, and mine you are, you benefit at the cost of everybody else. And these on a fun.
Sorry, I was just saying, you know what's crazy is we don't even need everybody to take that fucking ideology. You just need the top earners in the world to take that fucking ideology, and all of a sudden it gets better for everybody else.
But they wouldn't be the top earners in the world if they had that ideology.
Yeah. Well,
And
if
that's
they earn
what's
their way
fun.
there, but there's still enough of them that are born into these worlds that just like poof, hey, look, I got this right off the bat. That could still have that wealth without having to go through the steps of becoming a sociopath to get it. Can just be born into it at this point. So maybe those are the ones you got to change, I guess.
Well, and that's just it. What creates that sociopathy? Is it trauma? You know what I mean? Is it conditioned? Is it being taught from an early young age that we are the important little cabal and everybody else outside of us is unimportant? You take care of I, me, and mine and nobody else. Like in these families, you got to wonder, like, are these like patriarchs in, like, let's say Trump's family, are they vying the children against each other to
All the
see
time.
which one comes ahead?
That's come out in numerous writings now about how he was raised and how his family. That's exactly what's happening. He does it with his own kids.
So yeah, exactly. The competitive attitude to create little monsters. And so in a Christian terminology, like I know I talked about like the Kabbalah and like Sephiroth and Cliffoth. In Christian terminology, we're talking about demonic or satanic principles.
Yeah.
So ultra capitalists without compassion for anybody else, that's a fucking satanic principle in the Christian mythology, right? But they don't want to look at it that way. And that's why I think it's fucking funny when a guy like Trump is trying to pander to the evangelical Christians who are so far removed from anything that resembles compassion or, community or empathy. It's fucking, history's been written in reverse. You know, with the Catholic Church, is this compassion, empathy, and community? No, it's a fucking give us. We're going to control you. We're going to control your body. We're going to control your family. We want lots of worshipers. Tithe your money. Put it all towards our golden throne. It's like these systems are completely in reverse. And it's because these people that understand these esoteric teachings, and you study Kabbalah, you study like the yoga systems, and you understand morality, eating from the tree of good and evil, you understand good and evil, and the people that are in charge are fucking evil. Like, I hate to say it, and that's just it. And they're going to corrupt they're going to manipulate propaganda, they're going to manipulate the media to keep power. And what I'd like to see, and it's fucking rad, is that this new woke, and it's kind of interesting, woke is like awakened, enlightened, right? The new woke culture is, it's a learning curve. Like, they're making some mistakes, they're being angry, they're fighting back, they're setting shit on fire.
Yeah, screaming at old people in restaurants.
Yeah, but their hearts are in the right place. Their tactics aren't.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
yeah, I like your enthusiasm. Let's stop burning everything down, though.
yeah, let's look at what's going to work. That's like, as opposed to like saying, oh, you're my enemy and you're my enemy and you're not supporting of enough. No, we're all in the same boat. You know what? You go to a Trump rally and you really talk to people. You're poor. You're getting jacked. You're losing your place. Well, get in our boat, because we're all in the same fucking boat. Who's taking our pensions? Who's not giving taxes so we can, have some social safety net?
It's the guy with the golden toilet who bamboozled you.
Yes, 100%. The used car salesman on a huge level. And I don't think you need anything more than, I guess, of a conspiracy than the billionaire Epsteins or the Catholic Church abusing children to show you the moral foundation that these people have.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, what do you really have going?
And it's like, and once you can believe that, well, then know that they've done all the other ugly things too.
Well, yeah.
You know what I
who
mean? If
knows?
you can do that level of garbage, you've done all the other shitty things you can fucking do as being a person.
Well, I'd say, yeah, making people disappear if they're a threat to you, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to stick your dick in a child, yeah, I don't think it gets you can't go much lower than that. Well, I guess there's Jimmy Savile, right? The Jimmy Savile was, he was like the radio host. He was kind of like a philanthropist in the UK. Everybody thought he was everybody's good buddy. And then it came out afterwards that He abused sadistically over 500 children. They put him in charge of a hospital, and that was part of his whole deal. It's like, oh yeah, I'm running this hospital. I make no money because I'm like, just care about these kids so much.
Yeah.
He has access to handicapped kids in the fucking hospital, and he's abusing them. And then it all came out after he died. And then this guy...
Hey, sorry, I was just going to say, too, like, anytime you see somebody who is very wealthy doing some shit for fucking free, and it seems like it takes up a lot of their time, it's not for free. They're getting something out of it. You don't become ultra fucking wealthy and maintain that by donating a bunch of your time to good causes. You find ways to get paid back by that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's weird because I've been working on this Dragon Slayer recovery for my buddies that are dealing with addiction and shit like this. And one of my good friends he's been through the 12-step programs. He doesn't really buy into like the higher power element of that stuff. And he's like, well, how are we going to monetize it? And I'm like, I don't know if we need to. Like, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm really doing it because I think it might help some people that need help. But then he's like, but how are you going to get ahead with it? I'm like, it doesn't need to get ahead. You know what I mean? I might make some shirts, and hey, that's cool because then I could print some booklets. And if I could print some booklets, then hey, I might be able to buy some.
And it's funny, that mentality of, like, how do I monetize this? How do I turn this into a bit of a grind? Because I've kind of felt like that throughout my life, that I feel like if I want to do something that's just kind of fun and for me, that I don't prioritize it because it doesn't have that aspect on it. I'm like, well, no, I should be doing something that's going to eventually, if I keep working on it one day, maybe it's going to pay off in something. Maybe I'm going to, like, and I'm trying to get away from that because a lot of things I get value of, I'll never fucking make $1 from, like, it's just what I enjoy doing.
I think doing it because you love it, or doing it because it's the right thing to do, regardless, or God forbid, you do something you love that is the right thing to do.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I don't
That's
need to
an
make
option?
money. I'm having fun, right?
Yeah.
If your bills are paid and you got rent, everything else is gravy. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of lucky with the tattoo shop. My rent is covered or my mortgage is covered, and then I get to just do my thing. But I think, guys that play in bands as a hobby, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, that's your thing. You know what I mean? What are you doing with the band? You're enriching people's lives. You're giving the guys that play together. I joked with my brother. I'm like, if you could invent a sport that wasn't competitive, what would it be? And the only thing I could think of, it would be like music. You'd be creating something as a team. You know what I mean? Because you're not competing against each other. You're working together to build something bigger than the individual, And I think that's a beautiful thing. I love music for that reason, you know? It's like, for 5-6 people to get together and to create something cohesive where everybody plays together, and then for people that enjoy it, where as long as it's not like, well, how am I getting paid? And I think that's a principal difference between the punk rockers I know and the hip hop people. Hip hop, it's like, how can I get money for this? I got to get money. I got to get out of, maybe it's because I got to get out of the hood, but I don't think that's even it. Maybe when NWA was popular, it's like, I need to be a rapper to get out of the hood, but I don't think that's as big now. But punk rockers are just like, hey man, there's some problems with the system. You want to hear me tell you about the problems with the system? Yeah. As opposed to hip hop, it's like, yo, give me money, give me money, give me money. Like I'm gonna sell some drugs. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that, so I can put spinners on my BMW. Like, that's your prioritizing, right? That's your priority. So it's kind of weird. Yeah, traumatized people that just want to get the fuck out of trauma. We mentioned it with the sports stars, everybody wants to be a baller so they can become a millionaire, and they can have a mansion of their own. It's because they want to fit into that system, and they don't realize the system itself is corrupt. And I think that's where we're at, where a lot of people need to realize that, like, the entire carrot and a stick that we've been sold our whole life is false. It's just to keep you away from actually being happy. You work till you're fucking retired, and you can enjoy life when you're 70, when you get your pension. The fuck is that?
I get to enjoy it sometime, though, right?
Yeah, right? Sometimes?
When?
9 to 5?
I enjoy my life plenty right now, honestly. I think that's why I'm so poor.
Well, right.
Like, I fucking, just keep having fun instead.
Well, yeah, live poor while you're young enough to enjoy life. You know what I mean?
I'm going to be 38 this year. I don't know if I'm still young enough to.
You are.
I guess so. As long as you keep doing it, then you're young enough.
Well,
right?
fuck, you're playing live shows. You're doing comedy. You're laughing. You're loving. What more is there?
That's true.
Right?
Eating. I've been eating.
Yeah. You got a roof over your head. You got people that like your company. You're entertaining people. I think these are the important things.
Fuck you, Russ.
Yeah. You can fuck Russ.
Wait, what?
Let's not fuck Russ.
fucking with Russ. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that the things that are really worth it in life, vital existence, are not monetized. Like, how much of your life do you sacrifice in the struggle to get ahead? You know.
Yeah.
You
Too
know.
much of it.
Well, there's
Too much of it.
Get ahead and get by.
Yeah.
You know, like the idea is they want to keep us barely getting by because then you keep the cycle up. You buy the product, you compete to keep up with the Joneses, you drink the alcohol, you take the sedatives, you have a hard time sleeping, here's your pharmaceutical, you have a hard time waking up after the pharmaceutical, here's another pharmaceutical. If you're too happy, here's a drug. If you're too sad, here's a drug. And one of my biggest, I think, things that helped me was getting sober. You know what I mean? And I try to avoid pharmaceuticals if at all possible. Even after my breakdowns, I went to my doctor. I'm like, so give me a program that doesn't involve any drugs. He's like, well, eat right and exercise. I'm like, okay.
Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, right.
It's the same answer for everything almost all the time?
Yeah, drink
God
water.
damn it.
These are strategies, right? Yeah, but people don't want that, right? Because it's not fun. But it gets fun if you do it enough, right? You know, but I think that's
Well,
sense pleasure.
and you don't necessarily see the fucking result within days like you do with the pills.
Oh,
takes weeks and months to really get the results of those to stick. And you may see a few advantages, I guess, right off the bat. But
Well, meditating is one of
Yeah.
those things. You do
Yeah.
meditating for like a week, and you're going to start noticing a difference. The first day might suck, the second day might suck, and then you're just like the third day, you're like, wow, I feel a little bit relaxed. And then you can do visualization meditation, which is this whole deal. You go up the Jacob's ladder, right? And then crazy shit will happen to you, guaranteed, if you do that. I speak as somebody who's been crazy and in the psych ward and come out, but like, yeah.
Well, if you're a person, if you're trying to figure out your next steps on something or you're not really sure what's going on and you start just letting your mind fucking go, it's wild how you'll start to have a very clear vision of things that you're like, oh no, I need to do that and I need to do that to make this happen. And then you look back on it and all of a sudden you're like, holy fuck, yeah, that's what I did. I made that happen by just picturing it that time.
One thing I like is projecting myself into 10 years from now, you know, and where I want to be. And now I come back to here and realize what steps I needed to take to get to that position, you know, and you keep that in your mind's eye, even in the back. It's just kind of like a constant little running reel. And like when you see the opportunities to make that happen, you just take that opportunity, like that little tiny baby step, because it's leading towards that objective, right? Sort of like us doing a podcast, you starting to do stand-up. Like these things are those baby steps towards that 5-year, 10-year goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever it is. It's interesting, that esoteric philosophy. And for those people that can't see and they're just listening, we're looking at a Masonic logo here where there's like a ground and there's a ladder and there's 2 pillars. Now, in the yoga systems and Kabbalah, the bottom would be materialism, and the top is your self-awareness that you are a child of the divine, right? Now, the more you're just focused on your reality being purely materialistic, you know, superficial, I need money, I need to impress the Joes or the neighbors, keep up with the Joneses and all of that, the further you are away from your true self. And as you climb the ladder, you finally start becoming self-actualized, or what Carl Jung called individuation, or you become who you really are.
Yeah.
The further away you get. And of course, it's not just you're always up in the clouds, but you're not stuck on the ground, you know, and that the metaphor of the angels having wings, not being bound by material gravity, because they're ethereal. They're able to transverse up and down that ladder from physical reality to their ideal self. I like to translate this stuff into psychology because, you know, Freud and Carl Jung, they talked about the same principles, Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. It's all the same idea. So you could translate all this stuff into psychology. And I'm a pretty firm believer that old school esoteric religious principles were a pre-scientific way to understand the human consciousness. You know what I mean? And if you look at it like that, with that metaphor in mind, then it starts to really unravel and make sense. It's like, oh, okay, this is my best self and this is my low self. And if I choose to be evil, I'm going lower than that to an underworld, which is like hell, right? You're like animalistic, but less than animal. You're actually evil. You're not just surviving. And then you've got the civilized, noble ideal at the top of the ladder. So I love that shit. It's one of my hobbies. You know? which is another one of those occupational hustles that we're trying to get into. You know, my girlfriend does Reiki, and, you know, I do the hypnotherapy and like guided meditation and shit like that. So that's the next game. Our Hellbound Hillbilly Outpost might end up being a self-work, sweat lodge, meditation, yoga space eventually.
The Wi-Fi fired up out there, and then you can just stay put.
Yeah. It'd be better without it, you know? Yeah. Set an alarm, you know. If you really need to get me, set a flare off from the road, and I'll see it, and then don't come in. Don't come in.
Start 3 fires, not 4.
Anything else you got on the go?
No, honestly, I didn't really. Well, on the go. I mean, we got a show on Friday, I guess.
Oh, yeah?
Playing at the Feisty Goat. Probably won't have this up before then, but it doesn't really matter anyways. I'm still going to talk about it.
Feisty Goat is on the west side there?
Yep. Yeah, Feisty Goat. They're starting to do Sundays, I think it is, at the Capitol now, doing stand-up. They've been moving it around, trying to figure when they're going to do it. So I think there's another one of those coming up this Sunday.
Is that an open mic, or is they actually booking people?
That's the open mic.
Okay.
Yeah, open mic. And but speaking of booking, I'm going to do some stand-up in the Tahitian room. I don't remember if I talked about this last time. But
and you're going to have Brendo as your studio eye?
So I think he's going to be there, and there's going to be another guy, Wheelchair Legs. Wheelchair Legs is going to be doing something. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think Corey said it was like a spoken word over something recorded. I have no idea. I've never seen Wheelchair Legs, but I'm excited because that sounds like Wheelchair Legs. I don't know what else to fucking say.
Yeah. So your gig on Friday, I'm just putting it in my phone. That's at what time? At Feisty Goat in Saskatoon.
I don't know. Probably 10 or something.
Okay.
Probably doors at 9, I imagine.
See, it's funny. We keep talking about the current events, and then these things don't get posted for a week later.
Yeah.
I'm playing this Friday.
Just here to talk. Yeah. And even the stand-up shit, it's like, I just always talk about it to like people to follow the Facebook things for these different groups, Gap Tooth Production and shit like that, Punchline. You follow their stuff, then you'll know when it's going on, and then you guys can go down whenever you feel like fucking checking out some shit.
Man, I got to send you the link. It's on Spotify. Buddy sent it to me today, and I laughed my ass off because it touches base on a couple things that I'm into, and it was Alcoholics Anonymous is a poorly constructed cult and doesn't work by Doug Stanhope, and he's a comedian.
I'm familiar with Doug Stanhope.
Holy shit, did I laugh. I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Well, he's king of the drunks.
Oh, yeah? Is that his thing?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. It's just,
I heard a funny quote from him recently where he's like, I love doing comedy, but I fucking hate my fans, because he's like a real party guy. Like, well, that's what he's personified as, hey, and he's always fucking drinking and always drunk.
Oh,
and
okay.
so picture people else that also is there functioning but aren't funny. That's who's coming to see you.
Well, yeah. Like Savage Henry.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Right into that same sort of thing where it's like, no, I play a grease ball. You are a grease ball.
Well, that's the thing. You know, you play a grease ball on TV and you're going to get grease balls as fans. And, you know, I really wonder about that with like Sons of Anarchy or the Sopranos guys or any of those dudes that have like Sons of Sopranos. No, the Sopranos. Like, it made me wonder, is there a genre of like, you know, gold chain tracksuit, slicked hair dudes that wear Soprano shirts everywhere that really want to pose as Sopranos guys, like good fellas?
I could stand dressing like that.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
sliding into tracksuits already. I got sweatpants on today.
They're comfy, you know.
Fucking right there.
It's almost pajama weather. 247 pajamas.
She gave your brother a hard time for it years ago, and it always stuck with me. And he's like, "Fuck, man, it's like being comfortable." And I was like, "Well, if Graham does, I'm gonna make fun of somebody for wearing sweatpants outside. Now look at me fatting around."
Well, I wore a tracksuit one night to when the dancers were working in the bar, and the bouncers and my buddies were like, "What's with the fucking tracksuit, man?" And I'm like, "I can't wear pajamas out."
Yeah. I want to be comfortable. What the fuck's wrong with you guys?
Yeah, I can actually move in this. And then I kind of suddenly understood the casual Eastern European gangster guys. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that is. I am casual all the time. I don't ever have to be formal. That's saying something about my lifestyle, right?
Yep,
and
never have to put on a belt.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the same thing with hip hop, right? You know, I'm making enough money, I can always wear a velour tracksuit.
Fuck. See, that's what I got to do. I got to start changing it up. I'm tired of wearing jeans and belts and shit.
Bring it in.
Just gonna fucking
snowmobiles and tracksuits. Let's do it.
Right, lean into it.
I'm noticing, because I'm trying to sell my Triumph on Kijiji, that the transition is starting to happen between bikes being taken down and snowmobiles starting to be posted. I'm like, oh, fucking fall. Yeah.
Trade your bike for a sled.
I considered it. I really did. It's just another thing I don't know how to maintain. So
yeah, and you got to.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Fucking things are nothing but work, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe now they're a little more turnkey, but it just seems like it's one of those fucking things. It's like owning an old motorcycle. If you're going to own one, you better fucking know how to turn wrenches because you're going to have to. You don't have to do everything on them, but you're going to be stuck somewhere sometime going, well, how do I change a belt on this?
Yep. It's like my Triumph versus my Sportster there. I love both. Actually, the Sportster runs like a top 2, so I can't really complain. I think I lucked out with both. But, yeah, I got to get them kind of winterized, get them put away for the winter.
Tis the goddamn season.
Yeah.
It's the most, well, it's not the most depressing time of the year, but
For
I
me,
like
it
being out in the
is.
countryside. My job's been really fun lately, driving around, seeing all sorts of critters and all the fucking color changing.
I really like being able to hike around the farm without ticks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The
Nipping
deer-
at you.
Yep, the deer trails are very obvious to see. You can go hiking, it's dry enough and you don't have to worry about 30 ticks, because they're all gone. And I really like this season for that before it gets too cold. And yeah, and I think this is kind of it. COVID has changed my priorities a lot where I kind of got used to staying in with the girlfriend. I really liked going camping for the first time in a long time because what are the other options? Like I can't go to Mexico. I can't go anywhere nice. I can't even go over the provincial lines, go to Edmonton or Calgary. I better figure out what the fuck to do here in my own, I'm thinking about getting some decent winter tires and doing a little bit of off-roading with a sled for my kid out in the meadow at my land. So just cruise around with her on an inner tube or a sled and ripping around. Yeah.
Good times. That's how I was raised.
Yeah.
Dragged around behind a car. Sometimes on a car hood, even.
Yeah.
Those
good
were
times.
dangerous days. But yeah, a lot of times it was an inner tube or a fucking wooden toboggan. Slamming into ice ridges and
Well, if you're ready for it, she's got a helmet.
you're gonna need it. Yeah.
Speaking of helmets, like she's a skate rat now. It's interesting watching your child grow into the young person. You know what I mean? As opposed to being a child, being a teenager, they start being a young person. And over this COVID situation where there really wasn't much for her to do, she ended up going to the skate park all the time with her roller skates. So she's a derby girl for those people that aren't aware. But then she started going to the ramps, and now she drops in with her roller skates in like almost a vert ramp. And she's learning tricks now. She wants to start doing like hand plants and like getting air and like grabs when she goes up on the ramp. And I'm like, you're rad. When did you turn so rad? So,
damn, my kid's rad.
yeah, a buddy of mine the other day, we went to his house, and he's like, man, I got Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 on for PS4. And I'm like, oh, wow. So we started playing, and it came back like naturally. I'm like, does this still, oh, yeah, that does work, And so he had Tony Hawk 5 that he doesn't play because he's old like me and he's used to the old ones. And he's like, here, you practice at home with this, and then we come over and we'll compete, right? So I introduced my daughter to Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and she loves it. She loves it. And then it's funny because you want to talk about like a time wasting, you got a few minutes, you want to play a few rounds of Tony Hawk, you just plug it in and go. 2 minutes, you have a good time. So, and there's no real, you could just skate and get points and try and practice your tricks. My girlfriend actually liked it, so we just sat there and played Tony Hawk the other day, which is...
Have you ever tried any of the games from the Skate series, like Skate 1, 2, or 3?
No.
If you get a chance, I don't have a physical copy of Skate 2. I got one of Skate 3. I'll borrow you. I don't know if you got a 360. I only have it for the 360.
No, mine
Anyways, if you get an opportunity, try them out because I think they're hands down the best skateboarding game ever made.
Really?
They came with like a new kind of control mechanic where you use the right thumbstick and you pull it back and then flick it to like do a kick flip or a heel flip or a pop shove.
You
it,
kind of have to.
And so it's excellent. So it's kind of like how your feet would sort of move on the board.
Yeah, I can't do tricks on skateboard.
But it feels much more realistic and it's an open world game.
Oh, that's
so
neat.
like you can have the points and stuff on for tricks and you can do shit, but you can turn all that off, leave the HUD off, so it's just an open screen with just your character on there and just cruise around the world and just skate and just session spots. And I've dumped thousands of fucking hours into these games, man. It's so bright. And then I just picked up this new one called Skater XL. Which has another new mechanic where each foot is the thumbstick, so left foot, right foot. So when you're pulling them both back for a bigger ollie and you pull one back and then shoot the other one on an angle to do a kick flip or a heel flip.
That's really neat.
So it's very satisfying when you do land like clean in even simplistic tricks.
Was
so it's
Tony
not
Hawk
like Tony
2
Hawk.
the open world where you're in a city?
I thought that was the third one, maybe.
Oh,
where it
okay,
was
because I
the
remember one that was an
underground or
open
whatever,
world.
yeah.
Well, then like all of a sudden you're like on buildings and you're in parkades and all that crazy stuff. And I remember playing both.
Yeah, it wasn't just levels. Well, and even, was it the first Tony Hawk? First or second Tony Hawk where they had the bowls in Marseille? So like big concrete bowls covered in graffiti and shit like that?
Yeah.
I played the shit out of that when I was a kid, and then went to Marseille and I skated those.
Oh,
when I was
really?
There.
That's
'cause
fucking
I took
rad.
my skateboard with me with France, and I was like, well, if we're going down there, what's the chance I'm going to run into this fucking spot? Hey, and I was like,
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a shit from Tony Hawk.
at least for a photo op, right?
Yep.
What was I gonna say there? Oh yeah. So the games I'm used to playing are like these large role playing games that like I dump hours into, and like Skyrim or Fallout or what's the other Witcher, that kind of stuff, as opposed to this little time killer, and especially something that my daughter can pick up and within like 5 minutes she's like, I love this game, as opposed to it's going to take about 10 hours to really navigate this controller and
Sure,
know how to use this character.
There's a little more of that with the skate series. 'Cause you
Yeah.
gotta, like, learn how to run it. But then again, it is satisfying because it's not a super steep learning curve. Like, you get it pretty quick, and then you're like, oh shit, yeah, okay, I see how this fucking works.
Yeah,
And it's-
that's just it. I never was a good skater. I kind of got out of skateboarding when the double-ended tails came in. You know what I mean? I'm like the Caballero, the old school, like wide decks, right? And it was cool because the other day I'm sitting there playing with Autumn, and that's my kid. Maybe we could censor it. I don't know. Whatever. We're playing, and she's like, you know what, Dad? It's gonna get dark soon. I want to go skateboard for real. I'm like, fucking A, kid.
That
I high
works,
fived
yeah.
her. She's like, so she took off and went skating for real life.
That's
and
so deadly.
yeah. I'm like, yeah, well, man, didn't fall too far from the tree.
Cool is cool, man.
Yeah. So we got anything coming up
Talking
next week?
video games. Next week, I don't have anything planned. We got the show Friday, and then if I get my shit together, I'm gonna try and make it to the stand up on Sunday. So maybe I'll have some stories related to either of those events.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a relatively busy week at work too. So
I got a couple ideas for guests. I got a
Okay.
friend who's a young entrepreneur. She's a massage therapist, pretty political. Well, she has opinions on the internet, I know. So I thought
Cool.
she might be interesting to
Yeah.
come in. She's starting her
Sounds
own
dope.
business and stuff like that, and see if she'd be interested in that. And she'd probably be good for a
give her a shout.
couple hours. Yeah. She's good for a couple hours.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, man. I don't really know fuck all else.
All right. Love you.
Well, love you too.
All right.
Bye.
Peace out.